kind of theory, isn't it? You know, it's like the ferry. It's, you know, it's just, you know, for once we're trying to make it easy. You know, you know, you load up your tanks, go in, load quick, you know, and quickly sort of offload basically. So it's that was the thinking, you know, originally. You know, try and make sense for once.
Yeah.
You know.
Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is Ship Updates, and of course the big news, the Starlifter, the Crusader Industries Starlifter, Hercules Starlifter, the Starlifter. What do I think of it? Well, honestly, I kind of really like it. I think it's a great ship. Now, of course, there are other ships that can do similar things. There are many ships which can deliver a vehicle to the ground, but you know, this is something that we always knew was coming, was something, especially once we saw the tank, that kind of put a lock on it, that we were going to get a heavy transport of this type to deliver a large amount of vehicles, or the much larger vehicles, to the ground. You know, you don't always want to just say drop one tank on the ground. You may want to drop tanks plus support, and this seems to be a vehicle that's geared more around that type of idea. Now, if you look at the ship, you might think that its shape is a little bit odd or unusual because it seems to have kind of almost a void underneath it. There are the two wings which kind of cant downwards, and then you have the nose which is sitting up high, and then in the middle you have the cargo bay which unloads from the rear and from the front. Now, you might think that having that empty space doesn't make a lot of sense, or maybe we could stick more cargo in there. If we lowered the cargo bay, maybe we would have more room to put more stuff in the cargo bay. But you have to remember that in Star Citizen, you're not always dealing with uniform ground. In fact, probably the only place that you're really going to find that is very unique locations on various moons or worlds, or at specified landing locations, and that may not always be available to you depending on where you're going. I mean, if you're landing an invasion force or an armed force in a hostile environment, they may not be so kind as to let you use their landing pads while you're attacking them. Now, the ship, at least in its cargo form, is not all that heavily armed, so of course it's going to need support wherever you're going to take it, but obviously that's something to be expected. Not every ship can be an absolute badass covered in guns in every direction. There have to be some trade-offs to a ship like this, and you know, even when you look at the cargo version, even though it's probably the least protected and obviously the least armed, though the one that has the greatest cargo capacity, it can still achieve that objective of delivering tanks and or multiple vehicles to the surface of a planet. I mean, you don't have to think of it just as simply a tank transport, but if you're going down to the surface of the planet and you just want to land a large group of infantry with perhaps, say, Dragonfly space bikes and have them be able to scoot around on those, then when you look at this ship, you think, okay, well, now I can actually land a fairly sizable force, and in the end that would be a fairly mobile force, because chances are you're not going to be landing directly on your objective. Now, within that space, of course, there appears to be at least enough room for a variety of vehicles, so you're not just simply limited to perhaps a couple of tanks down the center, but also a few vehicles off to the side, so it gives you options, and that's always a good thing. Now, of course, you can look at many other spaceships in Star Citizen, like Constellations, Carracks, things of that nature, certainly Starfarers, and you can look at them and you can say, oh, well, this allows me to bring, you know, one of these, one of those, or maybe a couple of these vehicles, but there's nothing short of an Idris that really allows you to bring down a variety or a mixed unit of vehicles the way that this ship does. And that really, I mean, those options are something that really brings a lot of cool shit to the table for a player. And especially in its initial cargo version, which offers the most space, it also offers the most variety, and generally that's the one that comes in at the lower price. Now, with a lot of ships in Star Citizen, there tends to be a leaning towards style over substance, form over function. And that has always been, at least in my opinion, one of Star Citizen's Achilles heels. Is that, often there are mistakes made in the designs of certain ships, or there are omissions that are later explained away as balancing. Sometimes it's the cockpit view. Sometimes it's how the cargo is loaded in and out of the ship, but this ship really kind of focuses more on the fundamentals. Some people might look at the design from the exterior and say that it looks kind of mundane or kind of boring, but really, I mean, it's simply a ship that's designed to do the job that it's supposed to do and designed to do it well. Now, that's not to say that this is a perfect ship. There are, some immediately visible issues with this ship. And I think one of the biggest ones is the design of the cockpit and adhering to that kind of atmospheric aircraft. It's got kind of almost a B-2 Spirit style nose and cockpit. And in kind of adhering to that kind of design and kind of trying to give it that shape and that language, especially up in the front, it has ignored the fact that this is a vertical takeoff and landing ship, as we have seen, and the pilot is going to need to see the ground that they're actually landing on. It's, it's kind of one of these things that you're going to need to be able to do, and unfortunately this ship doesn't seem to really make an allowance for that. I mean, a ship that's designed primarily to land vehicles and forces on the ground should probably be able to see the ground that it's landing on. And often people will say, yes, but having a cockpit with all the bells and whistles adds to my immersion, but having to slip out into third person to land it safely doesn't take away from that immersion. It's kind of a strange thing, because that, being able to see the ground, or at least having a functioning altimeter, would seem to be a prerequisite to having a vehicle like this. Now, another version that we have seen of this is, of course, they called it a gunship. I would call it more of a heavy assault ship, but you can see it here dropping conventional bombs, kind of carpet bombing an area, but it's also supposed to be equipped with MOABs, which are massive ordnance air blast, or more often called mother of all bombs. Very large explosives which are delivered to an area to devastate that area. So not only is this meant to land forces on the ground, but it's also can be used to devastate targets on the ground, though bombing is something that is still probably in a very nascent stage at CIG, and so they have been so far unwilling to give any real details about this system, because once again, it is something that is in development. It is not in any kind of finished or playable state at this time. So apart from telling us that this is going to be something that this ship has, that we have designed an entire variant around it, we are unable to give specifics at this time. But since the system is indeed missing from the game currently, that's to be expected. Now, you may be looking at this or the other variants and saying, okay, this is exactly what I want. How much is it going to cost me? And from the early VIP sale that we've seen, the pricing, at least on the C2 variant, which is the cargo variant, is not unreasonable. I mean, when you think about a Caterpillar, which you're seeing in the background here, costing about $295, the base version of the C2 variant is $300, only $5 more than that. And that obviously gets you a little bit more cargo space than the Caterpillar. I think just over 100 SCU more. And the pricing, though, it tends to increase kind of sharply after that. You go up another 100 and a bit for the M2 variant, which is a middle-of-the-road military variant, though I'm not too clear on the details. Of course, we're going to get more information when the sale drops, more specifications, but this appears to be a middle-of-the-road assault ship. And then finally, ringing in at, frankly, a shocking $700 for recycled money, $600 for new money, assault variant, which is the A2, which is the one that has the bombs. It also has the Moabs on it. And I feel that at that point, when the price got that high for that version of it, I think that that was kind of a missed opportunity and probably a miscalculation. That seems a little excessive. I would say that probably the price of the M2 should realistically have been the maximum and the price of the A2, and that the M2 should have sat halfway between that and the C2 variant. So if I was someone who is looking at any kind of job in the Star Citizen universe that not only required transport of cargo, but also landing of vehicles on a planet for whatever reason, multiple vehicles, I could definitely see myself picking up the C2 variant. I mean, if you're already acclimated to the pricing of Star Citizen ships, I don't look at that as being unreasonable. However, the A2 variant I see as being overpriced. And so that would be, if I was looking to get that, if I looked at it and said, hey, that's something that I need, that would be something that I would buy in game. I would never melt any of my ships in any way, shape, or form to purchase that. It's overpriced. Like I said, I think that the price of the A2 should actually be the price of the M2, and that the M2 should sit somewhere between the C2 and the A2. That being said, I think that definitely the C2 variant is going to get a warm reception from the community. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to look at that ship and say, hey, you know what? There are a lot of cargo ships in the Star Citizen universe. I mean, there's this one, obviously. But this is a cargo ship that's not only designed to be competent at delivering cargo or transporting cargo, but can also transport a very wide variety of ground vehicles to the surface of a planet and unload them easily by use of ramps rather than elevators. So I have to say that I can definitely see this ship being very popular within the community. The A2 variant, until we see detailed statistics on the ship, what type of guns, what size shields, all these sorts of things, I think that that's a ship that still has a bit of a question mark over it. Can it really justify that price? I'm not sure. We're going to have to wait and see what these Moabs really can do. That's going to be a big thing that we're probably not going to get an answer to for a long time. But beyond that, the rest of the systems on that ship, do they justify the price? I guess we'll have to wait and see till the 11th of May. Once we have detailed statistics, then we can kind of make a more informed analysis. But in the end, this is just my gut reaction from what's been presented to us so far. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll see you Monday.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.